Hi, I'm Marta Serrano, and today I'm going to be talking about language learning theories. This is the first activity for linguistics in English. To talk about language learning theories, first we have to know about second language acquisition. Second language acquisition, it's an essential area of research in the field of applied linguistics. But what is it exactly? Second language acquisition is a process by which a speaker of one language strives to learn another for communicative purposes with people from other countries, for a job, etc. This area of research is about to understand how language is represented in the mind. If we understand how language works and how is it learned, then we will develop and implement better and more effectively teaching strategies and practices. So now we can go to learn about theories. First of all, we have the linguistic perspectives. And we have to talk about universal grammar. Chomsky gave birth to the idea that the universal grammar of human languages exists. Chomsky explained that within the range of language children were exposed to, there would naturally be samples of language that were incomplete and sometimes degenerate. Slips of the tongue or false starts, for example. Universal grammar was thought to contain general principles underpinning of all languages, with the child's task being to discover how the language or he or she is exposed to and make use of these principles. The origin of this theory is the fact that all children learn the model languages during their childhood and are able to use it or them to communicate, regardless of the lack of correction in their early years. This would be a titanic task for our brains if we were to accomplish, right? In the linguistic perspectives, we also have to talk about the monitor theory. The main hypothesis of monitor theory is that there is a difference between acquisition and learning. Acquisition is believed to occur in a manner similar to language acquisition. The learner is focused on communicating their message and meaning, whereas learning is described as being a conscious process where the learner's attention is directed to the rules and forms of the language. The process of second language acquisition is predictable. They were all the linguistic perspectives, and now we're going to go to the psychological perspectives. First of all, we have behaviorism. Behaviorism was born out of the view that all learning, language learning included, occurs through a process of imitation, practice, reinforcement, and habit formation. According to behaviorism, the environment in which the learning takes place is essential to the learning, not just because it is the source of the language from which learners form associations between the words they hear and the objects and occurrences they represent, but also because it is from the environment that learners get feedback on their performance. Behaviorists claim that when learners correctly produce language near to what they have been taught, and these efforts are encouraged with positive reinforcement, reward or congratulation, for example, then good habits are formed and learning has taken place. Also inside of psychological perspectives, we have cognitive psychology. They believe that second language acquisition, like any other learning, requires the learner to pay attention and commit effort to what is being learned, whether or not the learner is fully aware what is it. A number of information processing theories suggest that language, like other skilled activity, is first acquired through intentional learning of what is called declarative knowledge, and that through practice the declarative knowledge can become proceduralized, and with further practice still it can become automatic. According to the information processing model, learning occurs through repeated practice until declarative knowledge becomes automatic. In here, we also have to talk about connectivism. Connectivist theories are similar to behaviorism in that they hypothesize the development of strong associations between items that are frequently encountered together. Brain makes networks that connect words or phrases to other words or phrases, which occur at the same time. It is suggested that these connections are strengthened when learners are exposed repeatedly to linguistic stimulus in a specific context. And the last one of the psychological perspectives is the processability theory. The processability theory represents a way to relate underlying cognitive processes to stages in the second language acquisition learners' development. Learners begin by noticing the most typical word or their pattern in a language and using it in all contexts. Next, they would be able to move the words at the beginning and at the end of the sentence. Only later in the development could they be able to manipulate the less prominent words because they were embedded in the middle of the string of the words. Because each stage reflected an increase in complexity, a learner had to grasp one stage before moving to the next one. It was not possible to skip a stage either. A pedagogical implication of this is the teachability hypothesis, that learners can only be taught what they are psycholinguistically ready to learn. Let's move on to the interactionist perspectives. So, some second language acquisition theorists assume that a great deal of language learning takes place through social interaction, at least in some parts, because interlocutors adjust their speech to make it more accessible to learners. Language acquisition is just another example of the awesome human capacity to learn, from example. And the last of these perspectives is the sociocultural perspectives. There is an intimate relationship between culture and mind, and that all learning is at first social and then individual. Sociocultural theorists argue that learners jointly discuss knowledge through dialogical communication. Sociocultural perspectives of language learning consider speech as the vehicle to connect with others, and that this learning occurs as a consequence of what we communicate to others and what others communicate to us. And now we can see that we follow the information for the manual of this subject, and that was all. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next one.